this meeting to order. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Henry County Zoning Board meeting tonight, April 10th, 2025. I'd like to advise all that this meeting is being broadcast live on Spectrum Channel 180 and on the Henry County website. For anyone wishing to speak tonight, a total of 10 minutes will be allowed for anyone in favor and 10 minutes for anyone in opposition of an agenda item. For example, if 10 people wish to speak, they must share that 10 minutes slot. For tonight's associated cases that are being presented, a total of 20 minutes will be allowed for anyone in favor and 20 minutes for anyone in opposition of the agenda items, as these two are associated cases, and we have one of those. We will start with our invocation for Mr. Colbeck.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. I want to just ask the Lord for some help to make the best decisions for our Henry County citizens and the community that we live and serve. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance now. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we are going to have approval of the minutes. This is going to take a little bit. We have several to approve, including June 13th for 2024, July 11th for 2024, August 8th for 2024, September 12th for 2024, and October 10th for 2024. Can I take that as a motion for all of those minutes in the 2024 timeframe?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes on the dated time frame.
All right, and a second? And we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All right, that's accepted for the approval of the minutes for that time frame. We have two other sets of minutes to note. For April 14th, 2022 minutes, I'm going to state the motion, and then we'll have someone who will adopt it. I move that a notation be included to the minutes of the April 14th, 2022 Zoning Advisory Board meeting, which were not signed by the previous chair or secretary, that states, the minutes were reviewed by the Zoning Advisory Board Secretary, Mr. Toussaint Kirk, as of March 16th, 2023. The minutes accurately reflect the meeting minutes of the April 14th, 2022 Zoning Advisory Board meeting, and that the notation be signed by both the current chair and secretary.
I make a motion that those minutes are approved.
Thank
That
you.
minute is approved.
And a second. And we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor? All right, that motion carries. We have one more for a correction. For the May 12th, 2022 minutes, we need to have a motion that I move that a notation be included to the minutes of the May 12th, 2022 Zoning Advisory Board meeting, which were not signed by the previous chair or secretary, that states, the minutes were reviewed by the Zoning Advisory Board Secretary, Mr. Toussaint Kirk, as of the March 16th, 2023. The minutes accurately reflect the meeting minutes of the May 12th, 2022 Zoning Advisory Board meeting, and that the notation be signed by both the current chair and secretary.
I make a motion that the minutes are approved as stated.
All right, and a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All right, we have taken care of that business. All the minutes are now handled appropriately. All right, I also we have some changes to our agenda, and the agenda as presented right now, can I get a motion to accept unless there are any other changes from staff?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to accept the agenda as stated.
Okay, second? Moved and seconded. All those in favor of accepting the agenda? Okay, we've got that taken care of. Any comments that we have from staff at the moment?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. So we have a couple of postponed cases, as we just stated, in the accepted agenda. I just want to read them off, so if anyone's in the crowd that's here for those cases, they're not just sitting around waiting for that case to be heard. That's Comp AM 2404, J&P Synergy LLC of McDonough, Georgia, requesting amendment to the comprehensive plan for property located at 1099 Airline Road and Lot 74 of the 7th District. The property consists of 1.605 plus or minus acres, and the request is to amend the future land use designation from commercial to low-density mixed use. In District 3, we have an associated case, RZ 2418, JMP Synergy LLC of McDonough, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA to MU for property located at 1099 Airline Road and Land Lot 74 of the 7th District. The property consists of 1.605 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a residential transition to office space. ULDC AM 2501, an ordinance by Peter Nwazuzu of McDonough, Georgia, to amend Chapter 7 of the Unified Land Development Code of Henry County Code of Ordinances regarding the regulation of front yard fences. And the following items have been advertised but are postponed by staff. That's RZ 2409, High Brass Properties of LLC of Greensboro, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA to R3 to R5 for property located south of Pates Creek Road and Land Lot 73, 74, 87 of the 6th District. The property consists of 108.09 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single-family residential subdivision. That is for the gates at Pates Creek. An associated variance, VR 2403, High Brass Properties LLC of Greensboro, Georgia, requests a variance for property located south of Pates Creek and Land Lot 73, 74, and 87 of the 6th District. The property consists of 108.09 plus or minus acres, and the request is for relief from the development standards. So if we were here for any of those cases, those will not be heard tonight.
Thank you.
So we will go ahead and move to our cases.
VR 2430. Road, Georgia, request a variance for property at 160 Pentel Way and Land Lot 212 of the 2nd District. The property consists of 1.7 plus or minus acres, and the request is for relief from accessory setback standards. District 1, presented by Alexius Jones, Planner 1.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, and citizens of Henry County. The item before you is for property located at 160 Pentel Way within the Mallards Landing subdivision. The request is for a variance to reduce the side yard setbacks from 10 feet to 6 feet to expand an existing airplane hangar. The subject property is shown in your exhibit books and on the overhead projection. This slide shows the aerial view of the property. The property is currently zoned RA, residential agricultural. This is a site plan submitted by the applicant. And this is just a closer view of that site plan. These are some photos of the site, which show the existing structure as well as the proposed addition. The home on the subject property was built in 1994 as part of the Mallards Landing subdivision. The airplane hangar was later constructed in 1997. Chapter 7, Section 721 requires accessory structures be set back 10 feet from the property line. The structure is currently set back 10 feet from that western property line, and the applicant is proposing to expand the structure by 763 square feet for more storage. If constructed as proposed, the addition would also encroach 4 feet into the 10-foot drainage easement that runs along that western property line. Staff recommends approval of the applicant's request with the following conditions as shown on the screen. And at this time, I'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
Does anyone have questions for our staff? Not at this time. Okay. All right. Would the applicant come forward and please state your name and your address?
Thomas Stair of 160 Pintail Way.
Great. And please state your case.
As you can see there on the structure, was constructed in 1997 At the macro level, it's a very unique pie-shaped lot. And then the structure is occupied by aircraft, and we're trying to utilize it for more utility equipment, and then lawn equipment, and then some other golf cart type things. If you can read topograph and gradient lines, you can already see that the natural ditch line already exists, and then with partnership between myself and my neighbor, just to the north there, we've already modified that gradient lines to be almost due north, going away from my hangar and to directly parallel his proposed project. And you can almost just see a flat plateau there to the north and the west of my hangar there. So there is already an existing ditch line moving away from what is deemed by the zoning there as my property line. So we're trying to expand just with 16 feet out there to the northeast, which does impede by 4 feet into the existing 10-foot drainage easement. But just with coordination with the neighborhood and then the natural drainage there, it seems to work out quite nicely. But unfortunately, just by the design of my lot, I've got really not much else to go with to expand the hangar. On the very north end of the picture there, we all are responsible to maintain a 60-foot easement, which physically operates as a taxiway, and the taxiway are kind of L-shaped throughout the neighborhood so that we can have as large of a neighborhood to get access to the limited runway space there. So I'm trying to build out more utility space closer to the taxiway so we can have more utility for aircraft type activities towards the taxiway there. And then not shown here on the picture is the house, which is to the south side of the picture here with some fences, then obviously some very decorative trees and whatnot, and then the driveway itself, which would then constrain you to any kind of expansion on the hangar there. So this proposal is what we're trying to find the most logical solution to get more utility to the lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for our applicant?
Yeah, I might have one or two.
Okay.
I went out and drove the property. As far as that drainage, you're getting all that coming down the street and then down there on those heavy rain days. Is that adequate if you take up that extra 4 feet, I guess?
Honestly, I'll say within the past 2 years, no. But since this proposal has begun afoot between myself and my neighbor, we contracted a land service. So they came out and restaked our property lines and then did a 1.5% grade and then moved it out 10 feet on each side. And then as you can probably attest, that we've had some pretty severe weather here in the past couple months that put it to its test, and it performed flawlessly. Where I was getting, in my previous 5 years of residence at this property here, I was getting water right up to the western side of the hangar, and then since we've done this new property grading, it was numerous feet away. It was a pretty voluminous river, probably a good 6 to 10 feet wide, and it was flowing like banshees. If you want to contract some whitewater rafting, don't do it there, but it was flowing well away from the structure, whereas before it was right up against it. I've got an HVAC unit there that was all consistently getting flooded. So that was deliberately done as part of this project and also the pending project for the hangar that's going on just on the western side of this picture here.
Okay. All right, that's all I've got.
All right. Any other questions for our applicant? All right. Hearing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this case? Seeing none, is there anyone wanting to come forward to speak in opposition to this case? It doesn't appear so. Any other questions from the board to the staff or applicant? All right. right, well, we will go ahead and call the case.
VR 2413. Thomas Thayer of Locust Grove, Georgia, requests a variance for property at 160 Pentel Way and Land Lot 212 of the Second District. The property consists of 1.7 plus or minus acres, and the request is for relief from accessory setback standards. District 1, presented by Alexius Jones, Planner 1.
I'll move to approve with staff conditions.
Motion is to approve with staff conditions. Do I have a second? Second. We have a second. All those in favor? All right, the motion passes. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next case.
RZ 2415. Lennar of Alpharetta, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to MU Mixed Use, and MU Mixed Use to RM Multifamily Residence for property located on Willow Lane and land lots 97 and 128 of the 7th District. The property consists of 54.56 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a townhome and detached, single-family development. District 4, presented by Kenta Lanham, Planner 3.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, board members, and pillars of Henry County. The item before you is a property located along Willow Lane, south of Jonesboro Road, consisting of 54.56 plus or minus acres. Property is currently zoned RA, Residential Agricultural, and MU, Mixed Use, with a future land use map designation of High Density Mixed Use. The request before you today is for a townhome and detached cluster home development. Lots along Willow Lane will face the road and be accessed via the rear. Amenity packages are provided for both sides of Willow Lane. And here are some elevations for the project as submitted by the applicant. And here are some comments that we received from various departments, including fire, police, stormwater, water and sewage authority, school board, and transportation planning and DOT, and SPLOST. A portion of the subject property was rezoned from RA to mixed use in 2009 with allowances for commercial activity and multifamily uses. Those previous conditions of RZ 0911 do not currently require a right-of-way dedication for the widening of Willow Lane, nor provide a unit count maximum. The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject property from RA and MU to RM, multifamily residence, for the purpose of that fee simple townhome and detached cluster home development. The site plan does indicate 259 front and rear entry units, a total of 181 townhomes on that west side, and 78 detached cluster on the east. That again is that site plan. A portion of the subject property is located within the Highway Corridor Overlay District, and so we need to meet those requirements. The proposed development would also need to comply with the design standards for multifamily developments. Due to the number of units, a traffic impact study would be required prior to permit application. Any improvements that the traffic impact study would recommend, that will be required by the applicant. The site plan of note consolidates the townhome units, again, west of Willow Lane, with detached on that east side. That is in line with the existing developments in the immediate area. A lot of that multifamily and higher dense products or developments are on that west side. The east side, we get into a little bit more single family as we move along Jonesboro Road and even down Willow Lane. The Willow Lane widening, as I mentioned, that was approved as part of the SPLOST 6 project list. Those design and bids are to be heard by the Board of Commissioners next week on Tuesday. Construction of the widening is scheduled for 2027. This site plan does show that additional right-of-way dedication, 20 feet on each side. If approved with the conditions that we have outlined in our evaluation report and presentation here, the county will not need to buy that right-of-way. That will be dedicated as part of the approval if the Board of Commissioners approves it with that condition. With all that being said, staff does recommend approval of the applicant's request to rezone from RA and MU mixed use to RM multifamily residence with the following conditions. I do want to note that staff has made some alterations to the recommended conditions, most notably with the addition of condition 3, which limits building permit issuance until January 2027 or substantial progress on that Willow Lane splost widening project. So they won't be able to go vertical until 2 years down the line or Willow Lane has some progress made on that widening. Also want to note condition 7, before I get to that, condition 4, that line there, period of 60 days, that will not be applicable with the condition 3 building until 2027. But condition 7, I wanted to add some quick clarifying language there. 70 feet of right-of-way from center line along both sides of Willow Lane, just to nail down that language for the Willow Lane widening and necessary right-of-way additions. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
I have one question. Now, it's my understanding that there's no construction prior to the improvements.
As per staff's condition, that is correct. No issuance of building permits. Now, they would be able to develop the land, just not go vertical with the units. So no families would be moving in until homes are being built, but that is after January 2027.
Okay. But if he completes those prior to January 27th, they can move forward.
Could you repeat that question?
If he completes the development prior to January 27th, they can move forward with going vertical.
If the Willow Lane widening project has substantial progress made, or January 2027, then the builder can go vertical with those units.
Okay.
Other questions for staff? Yes, Mr. Colbeck.
On the rental cap.
Rental cap, I believe we have at 10. And I will confirm that. That is that last condition, condition 16.
And then the right-of-way is donated? by the
Dedicated.
developer. Dedicated.
Yes.
Any other questions? Seeing none, can the applicant please come forward?
Evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board, Steve Moore with Bass Consulting, 1350 East Ferry Court. Here tonight representing Lennar in this rezoning request. So this is, just for context purposes, the site area is 51.6 acres bisected by Willow Lane. The property, the development immediately to the left of the property there, which would be to the west, is the Carmel Vista Apartments, which are accessed off of Mount Carmel Road. And then there's some of the more recent multifamily developments on the north side of Jonesboro Road. Immediately south of this property is adjacent to Fernhurst Townhome Community, which is also was built out by Lennar, the same applicant as this. And then you have Birch Creek Elementary School, which is also borders the property to the south. The future land use map, as Kenta mentioned, designates this property as high-density mixed use. That land use supports between 8 and up to 20 units per acre. This area clearly on the comprehensive plan and the future land use map was identified as a kind of a highly developed residential zone. So we feel like what we've proposed is in kind with that designation. So you can see we have high density residential immediately to the south, which supports a slightly smaller density of up to 8 units per acre, or actually 4 to 12, and then the orange is the high density, which supports up to 8. So Kenta mentioned earlier, this property was rezoned back in 2009 to mixed use. This was a site plan that we actually prepared for that zoning that shows approximately 250 rental apartments, as well as about 30,000 square feet of office or retail. And that's just on the east side of Willow Lane. To Kenta's point, there was no maximum designation, or the conditions didn't specify, site plan specific zoning didn't specify the maximum number of units. And so with the land use district that it has today, would probably support in excess of 400 units on that property if someone chose to develop it under the current zoning. So again, there was 250 shown on this plan as rental apartments. What we're proposing is 259 fee simple residential units, owner occupied fee simple, not rentals. Both of these communities would have strong HOAs and very strict covenants and restrictions. So the 259 lots that we're proposing is, again, bisected by Willow Lane. The development pattern is to transition the density as you move from the west to the east. So if you move from the interstate towards the square, so you have the Carmel Vista Apartments, which is immediately to the west of our property. As we move east, we transition to the fee simple townhomes, which are attached fee simple townhomes, and then on the opposite side of Willow Lane, it transitions to the lower density single family detached lots. So for the townhome section, these are, as was mentioned earlier, all of the units that would face Willow Lane would be rear access, providing a nice streetscape as you travel down Willow Lane. The tier of buildings immediately west of those buildings will also be rear alley accessed. And then there's the balance of the units would be front accessed. These are 24-foot wide units, and that's just showing the section of them that would be rear accessed. These are 24-foot wide units, ranging with 3 and 4 bedrooms, heated square footage of ranging from 1,900 to 2,500 square feet of heated space. There's several amenity areas. This is just sort of pictures of this actually represents the future four laning of Willow Lane and how those buildings would present to Willow Lane. And then this is more shots of the rear access stuff with the front doors facing the road. This is the back section, one section off of Willow Lane that would be the rear access internally to the subdivision, but they're still rear accessed. And then these would be some examples of the front accessed units. So there's several amenities. Our original plan only had one kind of large central amenity on the west side, or on the east side rather, of Willow Lane. After discussions with the county and with staff, the decision was made to basically double up the amenities so as to not encourage someone to cross over a 4-lane road to get to the swimming pool. And so we have added the same amenities on both sides of the development. So this was an image of the resort-style pool with the clubhouse and playground. And then we've added a large play field. It's roughly a little over 3/4 of an acre. It's almost 9/10 of an acre that we've been able to designate that would be graded flat and grassed for kids to have an opportunity to play some outdoor sports, whether it's, some soccer or throwing a frisbee or football. And then several pocket parks and then a dog park within that section. So on the single-family detached part, this is 78 units. And again, the units that face Willow Lane would all be rear alley accessed. Those buildings would be pushed closer to the road to, again, provide that nice streetscape. And then these are some images of those those rear accessed homes that would face Willow Lane. These would be the front accessed homes internal to the community. Mixture of materials. We have some on-street parking, plenty of guest parking on both sides to try to discourage anyone from parking in the street, which we know is always a challenge. And then there's, again, highly amenitized on the north side, or on the west side, east side, gosh, get my bearing straight. So in this central roundabout area, another resort-style pool with clubhouse, playground, dog park. And as far as access goes, we proposed 2 access connections to Willow Lane, as Kenta mentioned. The right-of-way is proposed to be donated. I actually did the math this morning. It's 2 acres of property that 20-foot strip occupies. But what we were able to push our development out, and we feel like we've been able to maintain that plan that the county has. So I'll play this video, hopefully. There we go. So we feel like that donation of property, 2 acres of land in this area with this land use designation and the fact that it's already zoned, is very expensive property. We feel like it's going to be a significant cost savings to the county and to SPLOST when that road is widened. So I'm glad that staff brought that up as an issue and we could get ahead of that now. So again, these are the rear-loaded products facing Willow Lane. These are the front-loaded townhomes that would be the internal to the site. So as you enter in through one of the 2 entrances and you go past the first 2 tiers, the rest of these in the back side would be front accessed. Again, these are 24-foot wide units, each with a 2-car garage. These amenities that are proposed within this community exceed those minimum requirements in the multifamily ordinance. So I think we've tried to really go over the top as far as amenities are concerned. So in closing, again, roughly half of this property is already zoned, and that half of the property could support today someone developing way more than what we're proposing to cover both sides of Willow Lane. 259 total units. We are, again, the land use designation is 8 to 20 units per acre. Our net density is right at 12. Our gross density is 5 units per acre. We're proposing to donate the 2 acres of property to SPLOST or to the Board of Commissioners for the widening of Willow Lane. Again, this will be a huge savings to the county and will hopefully accelerate SPLOST's ability to start construction sooner if that issue is not, standing in the way. We have read through these conditions. They're acceptable to our client. Happy to answer any questions, and I appreciate your time and consideration. Look forward to talking soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore. All right, does the board have any questions for the applicant before he walks away? None at this time?
No.
No, okay. We only have 5 seconds on the clock for anyone else that wants to speak in favor of this case. And seeing none, we will go to the opposite. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the case, please come forward, state your name and your address.
Hello, my name's Connie Snow, and I live at 426 Chase Marion Way, and I'm with Conserve Henry. Before I begin, I would like to ask everyone that is in opposition of this development to please stand. I am speaking on behalf of everybody standing and the over 2,000 signatures on the Conserve Henry petition. I want to bring up some things tonight about this applicant and the property. The applicant for this property is Lennar Homes, and they have a history of building things that aren't of quality and leave people in dangerous situations. They have lots of lawsuits. I also want to point out that the property is listed on the Henry County property records as being Magat Revocable Trust as the current owner. However, what's interesting that when you look deeper into it is that there hasn't really been any deed transfers. So for example, for the parcel ending in 1000, It shows the last deed transfer, or the last person to hold the deed was in 2008, and it was Sterling Trust. Can I put this on the screen by chance? This one and then this one, please. For the second property that's ending in 3000, that shows the last deed was in 2022, and it shows it was owned by Henry County Board of Education. So I have a question. Why aren't the deeds up to date to the current property owner? And why is it that the property ending in 3000 shows the Henry County Board of Education? If it is truly a Henry County Board of Education property, that is tax dollars money. And if we're giving it away for developers for more development, we have some problems. I also want to point out, can you please put this up on the screen? Thank you. I also want to point out the school letter is actually outdated, so it needs to be updated, but the most important part of that letter is who it's to. It's to a lady named Pam Powers, who I don't personally know, but what's very interesting is, can you put these up on the screen, please? Or this one, just that one. That the notary for the applicant, Lennar Homes, is Pam Powers. That's a conflict of interest. I'm not sure if they're one and same, but we need to do some serious investigating before we move further on that, because again, that's county land and that's taxpayers' land. Got one more thing to point out before I close out. Sir, can you put this one up, this last one? Thank you. No problem. The applicant lists on the application for zoning that is about 56 acres. 2009, when this came before the Board of Commissions, it's listed at 34 or 35 acres. Where did the extra 19 acres come from? Because the Henry County property records do not support that. With that being said, I ask that you do not approve this development, because if it is indeed land that was acquired from Henry County Board of Education and the current property records do not show updated transfers or deed or sell prices, then again, it's our land. And we're asking you not to give our land away to developers for more development, to add more people to a school system that is already failing with over 20 schools. As a reminder for those of you who have not signed the Conserve Henry petition, I ask you log online and please sign that. Together we are stronger and power in numbers. Thank you. You can keep those.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this case, please come forward and state your name and your address for the record.
Hi, excuse me, I'm Mark LaRue. I live at 3331 Turner Church Road, speaking here for the Walnut Creek Watershed Coalition. As I've addressed with other projects of this nature, the high density has a lot of water quality impacts. This drains to Walnut Creek. There's sections down below this that are already listed as impaired waters by the state of Georgia and US EPA. The Henry County is supposed to be doing something about revitalizing those waterways. It's part of your MS4 plan for stormwater. I know next week there's going to be a presentation here in this room by the Henry County stormwater folks that's supposed to address some new things or whatever. I know this is down the road a ways, but again, all these stormwater ponds are going into Birch Creek, and all of those are mentally protective of waterways, and the engineers will say otherwise, but the data supports we have impaired lakes in Henry County. Impaired waterways, 90 miles of it. And the sad part of that is the state's only assessed 10% of the waterways in Henry County, and you've got 90 miles. And things like this degrade waterways. It's all forested land right now, completely forested. In the absolute minimum, we should do nothing less than conservation developments on everything in Henry County. During the moratorium of these applications, I would encourage Henry County to look at doing that, making all developments at a minimum, conservation developments. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to come forward? We have 3 minutes and 52 seconds and counting. Please.
Stop the clock until I start to speak, please.
You can start speaking right now. Thank you.
George Kelichek, Chairperson, Upper Okmulgee Basin Area Council, part of the Atlanta Regional Commission. I was asked here to come to speak this evening. Several items. You have 206,300 acres here in the county. You only have 85,717 acres left in tree canopy, according to the Georgia Forestry Commission. Will this land be clear-cut, or does your tree ordinances make sure that you have old-growth trees that are saved? All due respect to Lanier Homes and their representative, if you look at this design, I ask you to go to 1947 to Levittown, Pennsylvania, and New York. You will see the same types of designs for housing and subdivisions. 1980 for townhomes. I believe there's some calcified thinking going on here. I am a developer, real estate investor. I'm also a level 2 certified plan reviewer with the Georgia Soil Water Conservation Commission. I would ask that an environmental study be done by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and in conjunction with the Department of Natural Resources prior to this plan going forward. I would ask you also to look at Urban 3. I don't know if you know of them. They look at the financial aspect of planning. You have a lot of roads in this subdivision that would have to be upkept. But View Suburbia is subsidized by Urban 3. Also, I represent this county at the Atlanta Regional Commission, along with Clayton, Fulton, DeKalb, Henry, Rockdale, and Gwinnett County. I also am the spokesperson for villagehabitat.com, which develops conservation village communities throughout the United States. We have 7 of them here in the metro Atlanta area. So take your time, make sure you provide a gold standard of development, along with conservation and sustainability and regenerative production of this land usage. I don't see any farming areas for these folks to utilize to grow their own fruits and vegetables for future generations. So slow down a little bit. Take your time. Again, are you going to clear cut all this property, or are you going to save the old growth trees? Every time you cut a tree, it degrades the amount of oxygen we have to breathe. Again, you only have 41% of your land left in tree canopy. Clear cutting it is going to diminish it more. Yes, we do have impaired streams and rivers throughout the state of Georgia, and also in metro Atlanta. If you'd like me to come back and speak in front of this board and show a complete presentation, I will certainly do so, but I ask you to go to villagehabitat.com. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. All right. Will the applicant, again, please come forward so if we have any additional questions from the board for the applicant or staff. Yes, Mr. Risher.
I would just like to put out some information, if I could, for the board that actually Henry County has a large number of watershed protection areas. Just to name a few: Walnut Creek, the Tioga River, Tussahaw Creek, Peaksville Creek, just to name a few. And these areas are in areas that are programmed for low density and agricultural use, and that is to minimize tree cutting. So we have a plan. We have large areas of the county that have been set out for that purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Risher. Anyone else have questions?
Before we move on to those, I do want to
Yes.
address some of the comments that were made in opposition. Regarding the school board letter being directed to Pam Powers, and Steve can speak on this, but Ms. Pam Powers is an employee of Moore-Bass Consulting. Yes, she has on that notary stamp on the application. She has provided her name and notary. That's perfectly fine. That is, there's no issue with that. She is an employee of Moore-Bass Consulting. In regards to the discrepancy in the acreage, that 09 rezoning for the mixed use, as Steve mentioned, that was only on the east side, so that was really half of the subject property in question today. As it relates to the school board property, a portion of that east side was sold to the school board to develop that Birch Creek Elementary. So that, I wanted to just clarify a few things there. We're not by any means developing county land, school board land with the approval of this request. Just wanted to make that clear.
Yes, Mr. Kovac.
I understand in 2022, there was development of 422 apartments for this area.
Yes, and that was for the west side of Willow Lane, but that application was withdrawn. I believe that was prior to Board of Commissioners, but after Zoning Advisory Board.
And right now, in the current zoning that it is, they pretty much can develop up to 20 units.
On that east side, yes.
Which
East
would be
side
more
alone.
density than we would have with this proposal.
That is correct.
And this proposal has 2 pools,
2 pools, one on each side, that is correct.
and then it has multiple play areas, and then a field, and then the developer's giving the right-of-way and keeping it at 259
That is correct.
units as opposed to, they could do 1,000, correct?
Maybe not 1,000, but there was no unit cap.
We have some developers that would try that. Okay, so just saying, it's,
I just have one question for staff or Mr. Moore. There was some concerns about clear cutting. Can you elaborate in terms of the county ordinance and clear cutting and what your plans are, Mr. Moore? So,
You want to start, or do you want me to go?
Yep, so we do have a tree save ordinance currently in our code. We do allow mass grading for developments, residential developments. We are, of course, in the process of updating our code. Our code is quite old. I can't speak for what the future code is going to say, but we are evaluating each and every sentence within our code to make sure that it is on par with other communities around the state of Georgia.
In our plan, the areas that are shown in that kind of dark forested color are areas that are intended to remain in their natural state. With a development this dense and this, to fit that in there, it will be mass graded within the zone that's those buildings and the roads. There's a floodplain to the north, or page north, to the far east side beyond that roundabout and beyond the trail that all would remain as currently vegetated, and then as well as the buffer that runs around the perimeter of the site.
Yes.
But if the new ULDC updates has tree protection requirements or tree recompense requirements that's in place by the time this comes to permit, then we'll be forced to comply with whatever those rules are. And there has been an environmental study done on the site. Wetlands and state waters were identified. They've all been preserved and protected in open space areas. None of them crept outside of the floodplain. So the 100-year floodplain, again, is about 300 or 400 feet, that dark green zone is about 300 or 400 feet wide down to the center of the creek, which is the property line. And all of that property would remain as is, and any wetlands and flood streams are all located in that floodplain area to be preserved.
And I'll also add that along the creek, we have buffers in place. Our ULDC required buffers actually go above and beyond the state's requirements.
Just one other thing. Although this board doesn't have any entity in terms of title transfer or any of that, but has everything been done according to county rules and regulations?
Yes, so according to the tax assessor's website, which was shown earlier, it has a few names and owner information that very well could be outdated. I don't know how often the tax records gets updated, but land gets transferred, gets sold off every day. I can't speak for when the tax assessors updates their information, but there is some information that may not be 100% accurate today just because of time.
But your ordinance requires, and your zoning process requires a new survey to be submitted at the time of application.
Correct.
Which we prepared an Alta boundary survey that was accompanied with a very extensive title research, signed and sealed, certified survey representing the accurate boundaries of what you're looking at here, and none of that is the Henry County Board of Education. Okay. It is that Magot irrevocable trust and whatever their assessors and assigns are, but it is no way any part of what the County Board of Education purchased from that group.
I asked that question for the record simply because this board is not here to decide who owns the land. We're just here to decide what we're going to do with the land.
Yes, sir.
Are there questions for the applicant or staff? All right, thank you, Mr. Moore.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
All right, seeing no more questions, we're going to call the case.
RZ 2415, Lennar Homes of Alpharetta, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural and MU Mixed Use to RM Multifamily Residence for property located on Willow Lane and land lots 97 and 128 of the 7th District. The property consists of 54.56 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a townhome and detached single-family development. District 4, presented by Kenta Lanham, Planner 3.
Do we have a motion? Yes, go ahead.
Make a motion to approve with staff conditions.
All right, do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? No discussion, then all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Okay, the motion does pass. Thank you. On to the next case.
Thank you.
The next two cases are associated. CU 2409, Pulte Group Incorporated of Atlanta, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located south of Luella Road in land lots 208 of the 2nd District and 243 and 244 of the 3rd District. The property consists of 208.7 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a conservation subdivision. District 1, presented by Taylor Solomon, Planner 3. Associated case, RZ 2426, Pulte Group Incorporated of Atlanta, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to R2 Single Family Residence for property located south of Luella Road in land lots 208 of the 2nd District and 243 and 244 of the 3rd District. The property consists of 208.7 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single-family residential subdivision. District 1, presented by Taylor Solomon, Planner 3.
Good evening, community. The items I'll be presenting tonight, RZ 2426 and CU 2409, are related to a property located just south of Luella Road. The applicant, Pulte Group, is requesting to rezone approximately 208.7 plus or minus acres from RA residential agricultural to R2 sewer single-family residence for the purpose of developing a single-family subdivision. They are also requesting a conditional use to allow for a conservation subdivision. Please see the aerial of the property above. The current zoning of the property is RA, residential agricultural. The future land use designation is low-density suburban, which supports up to 2 dwelling units per acre net. Next is the boundary survey, which outlines the full extent of the property, just over 208 acres. Here, you'll see the yield plan, which is required before proposing a conservation layout. This shows the maximum number of lots possible using a conventional subdivision design. In this case, the yield plan shows 275 lots with a density of 1.75 units per acre. The next slide shows the conservation. A conservation subdivision is designed to protect green space while allowing for residential development. At least 40% of that land must be preserved as open space. Instead of spreading out the homes across the entire site like a traditional subdivision, homes are clustered together on smaller lots. This allows the community to keep more of a natural environment intact and provide thoughtful green space for the residents. Now here's the proposed site plan for the conservation subdivision provided by the applicant. This plan preserves 58% of the site as open space, well above the required 40%. It also includes a landscape buffer helping protect the area's natural features and enhancing the community's overall appearance. The plan proposes 239 residential lots with a minimum lot size of 10,890 square feet, which meets the development standards for this zoning district. Please see the elevations provided by the applicant. The applicant does introduce 2 different housing types. One portion will be age-restricted active adult community for residents 55 and older. The rest will be a standard single-family homes. We did receive feedback from other departments through the plan reviewer's comments, which you can see above. Staff does recommend approval for both the rezoning and the conditional use with conditions as shown on the screen. And we will also like to propose an additional condition, which isn't on the screen, but it reads as follows. A ground penetrating radar, GPR, survey/report shall be submitted to the developer or property owner prior to the issuance of any land disturbance permit. The developer shall coordinate with the Henry County Planning and Zoning staff to ensure that the preservation of the Brown headstone and any other headstones or remains identified on the property shall remain undisturbed. Please see the rest of the conditions on the screen. And this concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Do you have any questions for staff? Yes, Mr. Colvin.
Headstones as in markers, burial markers?
Yes, identified on the site plan that was provided by the applicant. Give me one moment to get back to it. There is a headstone identified on the land near Luella Road at the second entrance closer to the south. So we do want to ensure that, the proper precautions are taken and we're doing the proper analysis to ensure that they are undisturbed.
right, any other questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll have the applicant come forward. State your name and your address.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Zoning Advisory Board. My name is Andy Welch. I'm here as an attorney representing the landowners and Pulte Development in this rezoning request. Ms. Solomon has, with great professionalism, has taken all my thunder and explained the entirety of the development exceptionally well. If I might, Madam Chair, I do have just a few documents to pass out to the members. Ms. Taylor, you can hold back one as you need it. Here's also the rezoning. I'll give them both to you at this time. And these documents that we're passing out just are minor modifications to the conditions. There were some duplicate language that we moved around to make the conditions consistent. Otherwise, they're almost exactly the same as what the staff has recommended. And I'll speak to the last condition just that the staff has raised, and that's the ground penetrating radar. On the site, there's an old historical family cemetery. And we held a town hall meeting about 2 weeks ago with community members at a nearby church. I think we had about 30 or so attendees come to the event. It was well attended. It was an open dialogue for over an hour, and I think it was very helpful because members of the community actually came to tell us that they understood there was a family cemetery there. They wanted to make sure it was protected. We took that into consideration. The staff took that into consideration. And so that's where that new condition comes from. It's from the community's input. We don't know the exact boundaries of these, of where the cemetery is. And so that's why the staff is asking for that ground penetrating radar survey to be done. So we appreciate that because we want to honor the heritage and the families that have been interned there and be respectful of that. The plan already contemplates the general location of that with access from Luella Road so that any family member that wishes to come to visit the cemetery can access that along an existing easement area to get to the cemetery location. It is the boundaries of that cemetery location that staff and we and the community wants to make sure we define. So backing up to the plan, if I may, Madam Chair, members of the board, I don't want to repeat myself, and when we have these tied in rezoning applications, I'll speak to both of them, the conditional use and the rezoning. And so if I may, I'll just go through the process with you. Let's see if I can get the slide. There it is. Okay, so when you're doing the conditional use for a conservation subdivision, this area is located in Luella. Luella is almost adjacent to the Cole Reservoir, the Talladega Reservoir, which was one of the largest drinking water reservoirs in Henry County. And when you look at this area, this land that you're seeing here is under cultivation, so it is an active farm. But what the proposal is, we've turned it into the subdivision and allow for the western area of the property to regerminate in forest, and also provide an extremely important buffer between the development, Luella Road, from stormwater and any water runoff into the Cole Reservoir. So the conservation subdivision is intended to protect resources like that. In addition to that, because it's in close proximity to the Cole Reservoir, it also provides a wildlife habitat that, as you well know, as Henry County continues to develop, we're losing habitat for wildlife. So by doing a conservation subdivision in close proximity to that natural water feature, you're enhancing the ability for deer, turkey, and other wildlife to live and to habitate in this area, which I think is very important. And because it'll be reestablished from being an agricultural farm and back into more of a wilderness setting or a wilder setting, reforestation, you're actually increasing, obviously, forest, canopy, et cetera. So in all of those respects, you're actually getting a much more environmentally sound product by going with the conservation subdivision. I think you all know this. I mean, I feel like I'm telling you things that you already know. You've been doing this for a long time and can appreciate that. But in the yield plan, this is what it would be if we did a conventional subdivision. I think the number was I think it was 279 in total number of units, but it could be 275, but it's close to that number. And that's what it would lay out. And so you lose all the benefit of preservation of land when you do this kind of layout. Not only that, but you increase the amount of impervious surface, you increase the amount of drainage that comes off of these. Their stormwater detention facilities have to be bigger because you have so much impervious surface due to roads. That sort of is all counterproductive in this particular area of the county. So what we've done is laid this out, and there have been several iterations of this, but this is the latest, and this is what we presented at our town hall meeting. Both of these, in fact, the slideshow is the same one we presented. This would allow for amenities at the front, a boulevard entrance off of Luella Road. Mind you, Luella Road now is an unimproved dirt road, gravel road that runs into this area. Part of the requirements of your ordinance is that road will have to be brought up to county standards, which Pulte Homes will do in order to access this, and then bring it all the way down to the property line with a cul-de-sac at the end. This image does not show the cul-de-sac, but that would be, we'd have to put the cul-de-sac in so that school buses and fire personnel can turn around. And also at the cul-de-sac is where that access to the cemetery area is. In addition to that, we have the road layout. You'll see the lighter shade lots is the senior community, and then there is a gate there at the top for that senior community access we're showing here at the boulevard. They obviously will have access to the pickleball courts and the pool and the clubhouse area that's at the front of the subdivision. That everyone else will also have access to it, but it won't be gated. So the rest of the darker shaded is just your conventional single-family homes that will have also access to those amenities. At the lake, we have planned in there an amenity area right at the lake so that gets utilized for a park with a gazebo and a place to sit, maybe do some outdoor grilling in that area. The roads will be maintained as public and open, so you'll see the main thoroughfare that goes all the way down it connects to what is Hunter Road. And so that road will stay open and open to the public because there are property owners that are just beyond the property boundaries that need that access to access their properties through a prescriptive easement. They'll also be able to access that at that point at the bottom of that cul-de-sac. The other road will be there'll be a Knox box gate on the other road, which is the Nut Road that runs this way, Nut Drive. That will have a Knox box. By making these connections, you're actually going to make for greater connectivity through this area, which would be better for public safety. Heron Bay is just to the south off of that Hunter Road area that connects down, I think, to Watson Road in through a back access point to Heron Bay. So you're providing greater public safety connection in the area. And then by putting the Knox box down by the lake there at the bottom, you're not allowing for a flow through traffic into a community that is larger lots and more rural. So that protects them in that sense, but allows for fire and emergency personnel to get in should they need to, or if there were an event out on Luella Road or 155, then there would be another access point. So it serves another public safety function. We're buffering this off. It's a minimum of 50 feet of buffer that will have to be, some of it will be undisturbed. There are trees there, and then some places there'll have to be some enhancements because it's farmland. Along the frontage, we had planned for a 100-foot buffer, but in discussions with one of the property owners across the street who wants us to preserve some family trees that have been there for generations, we'll need to encroach upon that, what we had planned for a 100-foot buffer. It'll probably be more like 80 to 75-foot buffer along the frontage of Luella in order to shift the road onto our property and away from those trees to preserve them. So more trees being preserved and more family heritage being preserved in this area. Cemetery, trees that have been planted there for generations being protected by what Pulte is trying to build here. This is just a zoomed in of the layout, a little closer for you. The orange line back at the top corner is a wilderness trail that will be there for access for individuals to go in and walk, and more of a passive kind of park, but allow for them to walk through and have some recreation there and enjoy that area. So it won't be completely isolated. You'll be able to interact with how that environment grows up. In addition to that, what you see there is a summary of this. The request is R8 to R2, conservation subdivision on 208 acres, almost 209 acres. The conventional plan would have put almost 280 lots on there, 279. You're saving 40 lots of density by going with the conservation subdivision. So you're reducing density down below the 2 units to the acre. So we're actually lower than what would be allowed by the future land use map and the comprehensive plan. It's an incredible amount of area that's going to be saved in conservation, but you'll see there's 151 single-family lots that will be conventional, 88 age restricted. That's 55 and older with no children as residents. I mentioned the buffers earlier. Gross density is 1.15. The net is 1.26. The required open space on your ordinance is 40%, but this is almost 60%. So this is an extremely beneficial outcome from an environmental standpoint, and is entirely consistent with your ordinance. Staff's already done the analysis, and the staff's done, as they always do, an excellent job, but at every criteria point, this development meets your zoning criteria, your conditional use criteria, as well as your zoning criteria. So I'll speak to both of those now, just to be efficient with your time. Price points are going to be in the 400s to 650s, depending on the size of the home. Ms. Solomon showed you some images that we have here. Single-story homes for our senior living section, obviously. And I believe that staff has recommended conditions that make them more elderly friendly in terms of the width, the nature of the door handles, the development inside of the building. So that those things are already thought about in the staff. And I believe these are conditions that have been used at one other senior community in this very district, I believe. And so we're being consistent with previous decisions of the Board of Commissioners, and I think this body as well. The other homes are a variety of homes, and Pulte is well known for engaging with the prospective buyers on them picking out which homes they want. It's almost become catalog in a nature. So you pick the kinds of elevations you want, the designs. They have prohibitions on the same homes, similar homes being located right next to each other, across from each other, so you get diversity of the homes, so it doesn't look monotonous. So they're very thoughtful about those, and that's what they encourage, the buyers to try to pick out homes that fit within the community. There's a variety of these. You have a more farm-style homes there. You have more old. I look at this as more the 1990s style homes. So there's a variety of homes. That's the point. Craftsman styles, tons of variety in their menu choices. With that, I think we've covered the watershed, the forest, the future forest, and on this particular property. We have tried to work very closely with listening to the community's concerns, and we've added those. We made sure we had those buffers, and we're trying to preserve the trees around the edges of the property so that those people that are already adjoining this property will still feel like there's that visual screening that's there around their homes. And we think that this is an excellent layout for this particular area of Henry County, and accomplishes all the goals of both conservation and your zoning requirements. And with that, I don't have anything further other than to ask for your favorable support of this request with staff's conditions. We do have those modifications, and if you are so willing to to approve them with the modifications we've submitted to you. I think that will just clean up a few items, and I'll let Ms. Solomon speak to those if there's any concerns about those conditions. And the condition that she has already asked you to add to this bunch is, I think, consistent. The only qualification is that we will not do ground penetrating radar on the entire property. We're going to do it in the general area where we think where we have historical records, and there are some old headstones that show about where that grave area is, so we can do that area and check. With that, I'll take any questions you have.
Do we have questions for the applicant?
Llewellyn Road, you're going to be improving that. How is that, like a half mile worth of road you've got to put in?
I think I don't want to give you the exact amount, but it is a significant
Yeah.
drive down, and it will be of significant cost to build that to county standards. And we're in the process of discussing with all of the property owners along that road to request their permission to widen the road to get it to the width standards. And I think we have confirmation from all of them that they are willing to do so. But obviously that won't happen unless the project is approved.
On the, I know most of the land is fields. That back portion is, fully got trees on it. But where the fields are, what would you do? Just let it start going natural, or are you putting plantings in? It's a conservation part of it?
We have not, I haven't answered the question about whether we would add plantings to it. If we added pines to it, that would be a fairly simple endeavor to go and plant a pine forest in there, but we have not discussed how that would be. Presently, the plan would be to allow it to grow up naturally so that it actually supports the wildlife that would normally come in. So you'd have your smaller, not Bradford pear, but they're kind of like that wild pear, wild plum tree that generally jumps up. Then you'll see poplars come in. You'll see pine trees also come in naturally. And then that creates a natural canopy and a transition that wildlife generally likes. But if there's a request there, we'll certainly take it under consideration.
And as far as staff, is there a requirement on the 100-foot buffer along Luella as far as having plantings?
I can take a look into the ULDC, but I would like to state that the conditions that, we've provided as well as the applicant has modified, we're still have a work in progress with those. So even if you all are able to approve or deny or approve with conditions this evening, between now and the Board of Commissioners meeting, we'll be making modifications to make sure it's the best product for the county.
And Mr. Bill, the Unified Land Development Code requires those buffers in the conservation subdivision to remain undisturbed. But in areas that aren't sufficient for screening, staff requires the development team to go and plant enhanced buffers. In a case like this, considering this is farmland, there's probably going to be a lot of empty places that they need to enhance.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and we understand that and intend to comply with that.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Kolpeck.
The play area. How big is that play area that I saw in the bottom left by the lake?
It's not very large. The topography is a little challenging with the lakeside. There's an elevation change there where it drops down into a creek bottom, but there is a small area, and I don't have a size for you, but I would say it's about the size of a lot, so about 10,000 square feet is my rough proportion. It may be quite as double that. John, is it about twice that? So it's about 2 lots. So it's about 20,000 square feet of what would be more or less a picnic area right by the lake, so you could enjoy the view of the lake.
No, and I've been looking for like half acres where the kids can have somewhere to go, and we're right at the lake. You got little connectivity where people can do a lot of stuff and be together.
Yes, and where it's located by the lake, it makes for a nice scenic viewpoint, and it's not really, if you noticed, it wasn't really close to any houses. There's only a couple houses that it comes off of, so in terms of privacy, you still have the privacy of the homes right there, but you're still a little further away so that you don't have that too much interaction with the homes.
Yeah, I'm just looking for a community in that you got a lake, you got a little play area, you got some stuff that families can gather to and not be in somebody's backyard. And you did that.
Thank you.
The age restricted, is that all ranch?
Yes, all ranch. That's generally the
You
model
don't think
choice.
seniors don't want 2 stories, right?
I'm not going to speak.
I
for-
want ranch. I'd like ranches for
I'm
my
not-
age
yeah,
restricted.
I mean, sometimes they want a bonus room for storage and things like that. So I won't speak for Pulte, but just so we're clear, we're proposing ranch homes.
All right.
Right.
I had
Go ahead.
quick question in reference to the cemetery. I know you had a town hall. Were you able to actually contact family members?
Yes, actually, family members are here tonight. Not of the cemetery, I won't say. I don't think that's accurate. But the Nutt family has been on this property for almost, 2 generations now? And so their familiarity with the property has been helpful because they've been able to give us direction, and they will continue to do so. That will help us in trying to identify the boundaries of that cemetery.
Okay. So we do have some type of idea.
Yes.
We're not disturbing areas here, and then you have a mile or 2 miles over, and there's another family member.
We don't know of any other locations for the cemeteries at present, and we have already done an archaeological survey of the property, and we have identified this location. Now, the contours of it is what we don't know, and that's why the ground penetrating radar is being proposed by staff.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant or staff? All right, seeing none, thank you, Mr. Welch. And do we have anyone else wishing to speak in support of this case? We have 4 minutes and 55 seconds left. All right, seeing none, anybody wishing to speak in opposition to this case, please come forward. We have a full 20 minutes on the clock, so please come forward and state your name and your address. In opposition.
Good evening. My name's Jean Kessinger. I live on Rocky Creek Road, not too far from here. Mine is a very simplistic, common sense approach when I see certain things that make no sense at all. This is farmland. Everybody's selling their farmland. They're going to get rich. They're going to take the money and run, and we're going to be left with whatever is devised for us to live with or next door to or down the road. So I'm not going to talk about us humans. I'm going to talk about the animals because the complaints are ready. The boards are full of, I saw a coyote, I saw a fox, I saw a raccoon. Well, we're taking their homes, and we're building our homes because we're more important. We're the human beings. Now, to put that in human being terms, that little piece of greenery up there in the corner, the one with the orange path going through it, so that the humans can now disturb the animals that might take flight to that sanctuary. Wild animals travel miles for food, for a home, for lodging. That's about the size of a closet for a human being and for an animal. The relationship's the same. That's not big enough. If you want to make a conservation, cut down on the houses, build better houses of brick, stone, things that'll last for years. Give the animals more room. Play, yes, everybody wants their children to have a place to play, but there's nothing better in the country, and Henry is still a little bit country, than a child to see the animals, to learn about the animals, learn the appreciation of another species, which also helps to build the empathetic relationship with human beings. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition, please come forward.
Hi, my name's Richard Black. I live at 271 Nut Drive. right at the corner where the gate's gonna be put by that pond. I don't know if you're all aware, but not too long ago, roughly about 3 to 4 weeks ago, a young boy passed in a pond that was unsecured. We would like that pond definitely secured by this company or this project company that wants to propose to put this units in here. I'm not really for this complex. We have too many of them anyways. I'm an animal lover, just like this lady said up here. But if we're gonna build these complexes, we gotta do it the right way to protect our children. I would hate to have to come back here to this board in 1.5 to 2 years looking for an explanation on why a 5-year-old boy passed in a pond that was unprotected. We don't want that. What about school buses and garbage trucks that got to turn around? I'm going to be greatly affected by that, because what, they got to turn around? On where? I'm right at the corner where that gate's supposed to be. Where are the school buses for that road that's going to be on Nut Drive supposed to go? Where are the garbage trucks going to turn around at? I don't want them on my property, but I need that service. Why don't we push that gate back down to where Nut Drive meets up with Hunter Road, build a turnaround? Let's secure that pond. Let's make a, like, I got good eyes. Robert up there suggested, let's make a bigger playground for area for their children. Let's put placards up there of the wildlife that could they possibly see for the kids, right? They do that at the parks. Hey, keep an eye out for this type of bird. Keep an eye out for this type of squirrel or whatever. That would be nice for this company to come in and do. If they're going to put a nature trail up there, make it a nature trail, not a human trail. Thank you for your time.
I'm Connie Snow with Conserve Henry, and I live at 426 Chase Marion Way. Again, before I begin, I want to ask everybody who opposes this development to please stand up. Speaking on behalf of everyone that's standing, as well as the over 2,000 signatures on Conserve Henry, it has been documented. We've seen tons of facts that have shown that we have some serious issues in our county, both with our stormwater system and sewers need to be replaced, and our clean water. The October meeting last year, that was a special called meeting, Warren Holder had spoke to some of that, talking about some potential challenges with both our waste and clean water. We found documents from the barge regarding the Grove development that was already approved after you guys denied it by our commissioners. And in that water feasibility letter, which again, that was done by a third party that had no weight about what goes on here, had really cited some serious concerns for our water infrastructure for that area. I currently have a sinkhole in my yard due to development by my home, and I have been working with Henry County Stormwater for a couple of months now trying to get fixed. They've been great, but some of the employees have echoed to me that I'm gonna have to wait longer for it to get fixed because they are overwhelmed due to the development and the amount of repairs needed in our county's infrastructure for water. I was at Hampton, I think, last month when it was brought up by the city manager that there are tons of repairs and sewer lines that need to happen due to them being overaged, but yet they approved a data center. At what point do y'all guys take into account our public health, welfare, and safety? Because all of those items have a cost. They have a cost financially that causes our tax dollars to go up, and it has a cost on our health. I don't want to be like Detroit where they have severe water issues and couldn't get clean drinking water. I don't want to be like California where the forest is raging in fire and we don't have water to get it out. You guys have to start making responsible decisions for us. The last one you just approved, that wasn't responsible. There's a lot of questionable documents in that application. You guys should have paused and done more research because the stuff that was brought up by that developer isn't factual. If you dig a little further, you'll see that you guys just approved a legal development tonight. So I mean, I hope it doesn't come back on you, but you might want to be careful about what you put your names on and do more due diligence to protect us citizens. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Please state your name and your address.
My name is Mark LaRue. I live at 3331 Turner Church Road, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Walnut Creek Watershed Coalition. First, to advise the board, the only buffers that Henry County has is above their drinking water reservoirs for 3 miles on perennial streams only. There's no massive program in Henry County that has all these huge buffers on every single stream. That's just false. This is a huge improvement over what we saw earlier. You know, I still have some concerns about it. I've been at this game 40-something years. I'm almost 70 years old, believe it or not. And I know growth is coming. And so I want to get the best. The lake here, if that's going to be a I don't see any stormwater ponds. So typically the lake is retrofitted and made into a stormwater pond. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's going to have to be some studies on that lake for all that additional water that's going to be coming into it, for the integrity of the dam and things like that. And I'm sure Mr. Welch is probably aware of this. I'm just pointing it out. If it is designated as a stormwater pond, it has to be fenced by state law. And if you go down to Trilith Development, they advertised all these great little ponds and people are going to be out there fishing and stuff. They're not, because the pond itself is fenced off in the rest of the park. So I'm just trying to point that out. But this is a great improvement over what we've seen on other projects. We need to start connecting all these wildlife corridors on these streams. That's how you do this. We start connecting all these wildlife corridors with expanded buffers on all these streams and waterways. And that's the best way to preserve your wildlife, because all the wildlife is concentrated around the water. So it's an improvement. I would like to see more like these. It may not be perfect, but it's better. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? All right, please state your name and your address. Thank you.
George Kelichek speaking on behalf of villagehabitat.com. I'm also the chairperson for the Upper Oak Moldy Basin Area Council, which represents you at the Atlanta Regional Commission and the Metropolitan North Georgia Water Planning District. While I certainly appreciate this conservation and Pulte Homes and Mr. Welch's comments, Village Habitat package that you have in front of you along with Farmer D are the gold standard in conservation village communities throughout the United States and the world. We're headquartered in Decatur, Georgia. I would just like to point out a few things about this design. 1 mile of roads, $1 million to maintain. Our designs are the gold standards. We can preserve 50 to 90% of development. We have projects that you have here from 3 acres to 40,000 acres. Let me provide you a few pieces of information that I understand conservation. I am one. Where's the artisan hamlet in this design? Where's the agri-farm hamlet? Where is the farm store and cafe for senior citizens so they don't have to drive to get their groceries or their vegetables or their food? Where is the sustainability in this plan for regenerative production of this land? Remember, you only have 41% left in undeveloped land here in Henry County. I ask that Pulte Homes sits down with myself and my colleagues, Darren Jaffe and Greg Ramsey, and let us look at the gold standard of a conservation village, sustainable community for not only this generation, but for generations ahead of us. You know, we develop affordable working housing in our developments. These look 400 to 600,000. Walkability. We provide interconnectivity of walkability. Here you have streets and roadways. We provide bikeability. And when you look at our designs, it adds to taxpayer revenue, which goes towards your budgets in the future. So looking through some information, how about the farm-based education for the students and the children that are going to live here, and that would provide senior citizens the ability to pass on their knowledge to children and high school students that could provide the regenerative production of this land? Have you thought about the social equity partnerships that could be combined in this community? Urban agricultural partnerships. Along with the association of nonprofit organizations that could assist this community if it was built correctly to the gold standard. Has there really been a forest and natural habitat assessment done on this community by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service? You know, they provide that service for free, because I work with them day in and day out, along with your Georgia Department of Natural Resources. They're great partners. You know, it gets back to the economic development of this community and Henry County, and building a community, not just a subdivision. So in working with nonprofits, you know, that could increase your food production for this community, so no one would have to go anywhere in a vehicle to shop. These could become anchors of your communities to increase the health, the economic resilience, and the community identity. You could have a community that is sustainable in conservation and education and artisanry to attract people to Henry County. So take the opportunity to look through this packet. We're more than happy to work with Pulte Homes to provide Henry County the gold standard in village conservation communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your information. We really do appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this case? All right, seeing none. We still do have 2 minutes and 21 seconds and moving on the clock, so please do come forward.
Again, my name is Richard Black. I live at 271 Nut Drive. During the first meeting that we held, they said that there was going to be no rentals at these properties, and now there's going to be at least 10%. I want to know if there's going to be CCRs that is going to be accessible to the public, stating that there's going to be no more than 10% rentals in these units, because that will start reflecting on other homes in the areas on the cost of their homes and their equities in their homes. So I would not want to see any more rentals more than 10% in the subdivision. That bringing in rentals of more than that can just create a whole bunch of problems in that community and around the community that it surrounds. Value of homes could possibly drop. It's like apples and oranges. However, covenant conditions and restrictions of saying no more than 10% of these homes will be rentables would be greatly appreciated for some of the homeowners, or at least a lot of the homeowners, I would figure, would want that. Because you get more than 10%, that's an awful lot of rentals being put in that unit, and it could just, 10% rental units in a subdivision, just asking for a whole headache of unwanted stuff in the community. So if they're gonna have at least 10% of that, I wanna make sure that if there's gonna be the CCRs of 10% rentals, is that gonna be accessible into the public for the acknowledgement in that? And that's all I've got to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? We have 15 seconds
Sorry,
left.
Tina Correa, 660 Chambers Road, McDonough, Georgia, and I do want to add that the school systems that serve this is Luella Middle and Luella High School, and they're both on the failing school list, so we're just adding a burden to something we need to fix. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll have the applicant come back forward, please. And questions from the board to the applicant or staff? Yes, Mr. VM.
So let's start with the pond.
Yes.
Is there a fence around it? Or any of that, what kind of access will people have to it?
Stormwater will be developed. The pond is not intended to be, we want to keep it its natural state, because that's consistent with what the conservation subdivision is for, maintaining the natural elements that are there. Kids that may want to go fishing at the pond, if you start putting stormwater into it, I think that's going to cause both elevation changes in it. So the stormwater detention will be designed and located in a different location. We don't tend to use that lake for that purpose. So it'll be an amenity as planned.
At this point, you don't have any stormwater designed into this, but you will because it's required.
It's mandatory.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's just not there yet. All right. Where the Knox box is on Nail Road, or Nut Road, could there be some kind of a turnaround there? If there was a school bus to get down there, and I know in a lot of cases, school buses will back into people's driveways and things.
Mr. Vian, that is a very good point, and I failed to mention that at the outset. When we met with the community, they raised that same concern. So I think we're going to have to cul-de-sac at the end of Nut Drive to create a point where a garbage truck can turn around or a school bus can turn around. So that, I think the gentleman that met that was Mr. Black, the first Mr. Black, and so we'll have to make sure we respect that wishes, because I think that's going to be part of the direction that we get from staff.
Sure.
Thank you for reminding me of that, though.
And then, as far as rentals, I guess, is how are that 10% rentals controlled?
Yes, sir, that's also a good point. The community actually vocalized this at the town hall meeting. I think Mr. Black may have been one of the Richard Black may have been one of the ones that had raised it. The conditions already have that built in. The staff has already addressed this through the conditions with a maximum permitted allowance of 10%. We have to put an HOA in. Pulte always puts in an HOA community, and that will be part of the restrictive covenants that Mr. Black was asking for, the last speaker that spoke up about it. If I might, if you don't mind, I just couldn't help it, but when I first heard him say CCR, I couldn't help but think about Creedence Clearwater Revival. And that was triggered because Miss Jean got up and spoke about take the money and run, and I couldn't help but think about Steve Miller Band. And then she said also in her presentation that she's a little bit country, and I thought, and I'm a little bit rock and roll, and I kept thinking about Donnie Marie. And so the whole time I'm hearing all these comments, and I'm thinking about the 1970s songs that were big hits when I was growing up. But I couldn't help it, but a little levity I couldn't, I didn't think would be too harmful, but I just thought that was funny when I was hearing the people come up and talk about it. And Mark's fantastic. He comes in here dressed in a Columbia shirt with fish all over it, and he's talking about preserving the wildlife corridors and also our watersheds. I mean, he's dressing the part, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the people's constant compassion for looking out for the betterment of our environment, and also still trying to provide something that is habitable both for the wildlife and for human beings. We think this is a very good marriage of those two things by maintaining that wildlife corridor, allowing this to revegetate and become forest land and wildland. The issue about the walking trail, typically the staff would like us to have amenities built into these, so that's why that's there. But of course, if you want it to be preserved in its complete natural state and let it grow up and be a true forest that develops from a 5-year transition to 10-year to an actually mature oak hardwood forest, I think that's fantastic, and that would be nice to see that happen over time. But my deference is to staff on the need for that walking trail or not. If we don't need it and the preference is for wildlife preservation, then I'm sure that's something we can work with the staff on.
Okay.
Any other questions, Justice Moore?
I do have one. Being it's not a farm.
Yes.
Is there, when we got the space that's going to be preserved, could we put somewhere in there for the farming? Not a store and stuff like that, but a spot in the community that says, hey, this is where we're going to farm, and community farm, it's up to the people to do what they can, but if designated, and instead of planting trees, you put not rope off an area, but fence off an area and say, this is our farming, because if the animals will come over the fence and eat.
Oh, yeah.
But that being said, it's a little homage to the nut family, anyways, that's just a thought I have, that it would be in farmland and something that wouldn't be costs. It wouldn't be like adding a second pool. It'd be just putting something there that the community could get around, and the nut family would be remembered.
I'm completely empathetic to this concept that George was talking about. When I grew up, I picked peaches on our farm. I baled hay. We raised cattle. We had horses. And there was and so I grew up with the agricultural community that was Henry County in the 1970s, and saw how it has transitioned into effectively suburban Atlanta. And so I've seen all the farmland go into subdivisions or other uses, and so certainly sympathetic to that. I'll have to defer to Pulte on that, because we have to set aside some land to do that, and I think it would want to be governed by the HOA, and I think that's something that maybe the HOA should sort of decide amongst itself. And oftentimes you find that communities do say, well, you know what, we'd like a garden plot for the community, a community garden area. And you see that from time to time over the Jason Harper Center. There used to be, and I don't know if it's still there, there used to be one there, community garden in that location. So I do hear what you're saying, and I think I'll leave that with Pulte to decide, and then also probably something that the homeowner should consider as well. But I love the the relation back to what the property has always been.
Yes, Mr. Risher.
While Andy's still here, I think it's important to note that starting in about 1983, the Water Authority and the county government jointly have created all of these watershed protection basin ordinances throughout the county. So this has been around quite some time.
Yes, and to that point, Mr. Risher, I think that you worked with my father on developing those very watershed protection ordinances that span most of Henry County, and that have been integral in protecting the watershed and those corridors along our tributaries. And these watershed areas are not merely protected by that ordinance. That ordinance was required by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in order to impound the water that is now being used to supply up to 365 days of water for Henry County if there wasn't another drop of rain to fall. And that's a tribute to our forefathers, whether it's farming or whether it's seeing the need to protect your water supply. When you think of Henry County, we've been hit with these tornadoes that come through, and they're always hitting right around Locust Grove, and then they hit Ola, and that's because, interestingly enough, we're at that high point. Sometimes you look at Jodico Road, and you're coming up Jodico Road, or you're at the exit, and you can see Atlanta. You can see the tops of the buildings at Atlantis on a clear day. And that's because the geography of our county is such that we're sitting on a high point. So everything, there's not, the South River one runs this way, but everything else falls in tributaries. If you don't catch the water in Henry County, then you lose it because it goes to the counties south of here into the Ocmulgee Basin that George was representing. So, Mr. Risher, you're exactly right. The forethought was tremendous, and this plan, conservation and rezoning plan, I think is very much consistent and dovetails very well with protecting and following the watershed protection ordinances that Henry County has adopted.
Mr. Villa?
One other question I'm trying to remember. How much is conserved? Is it 57% or something?
58%.
58%. Okay.
Yep. Don't shortchange me 1%. That's important. I really appreciate your time tonight. I know we've gone over time, and I've bled into the rezoning. I'm going to try to I'm just going to probably say ditto when we get to rezoning.
Mr. Welch,
do we do it all together, or are we doing it all?
No, we do take them as separate votes, although we don't have to reiterate everything again because we do take them as a combined case.
I get paid by the word, so it doesn't hurt me.
You're an attorney, so that's a good thing. I'm going to get to a point in a second, Mr. Welch, but thank you to one of the things that we as a citizen board, we all are living in our communities, driving back and forth across Henry County to make sure that we go to a lot of these properties and look at them. And I want to make sure that people understand that as we are trying to perfect some of these proposals, the way that this started out was basically sticking 279 pieces on 3/4 acre with no ability to do any of this conservation. So in moving in this direction, the developer can do what they want until we make a decision as a collective community that we want better. Then it's up to the homeowners to decide where will they go with their community. Right. It's about participatory, both government, participatory communities, and we hear and we learn and we grow. And that's what we need to do. So my question is, if nothing gets done on this, what happens to this property?
Yes, that's a great question. The Nutt family is here tonight. If Pam, you stand, and anyone else that would want to stand. And they are beloved members of the community, especially the Luella area, and. May I answer the question? Yes. Why don't you answer the question, Ms. Pam?
Can you come forward and give us your name and your address? Because you are the applicant in this case.
My name is Pam Nutt. I live at 286 Llewellyn Road. I have been on the school board for 30 years. I'm not quite sure where we're getting these failing schools, but that's another way to talk. What happens to this property if we don't sell it? I'm the last one on my property. My children have moved off. Mr. Nutt has another farm in Unadilla. So, and my cousin lives next to me, and he still farms his property. And then my neighbors, the Stricklands, they farm their property. So I'm sure what I live in the home place, and I'm sure it will still continue to be farming, but I can no longer do it. Being one person, and as Pulte is showing, the elder, the 55 and over community, I'm afraid I would fit right in with them. So it would be hard, but with things moving in, we're no longer able to keep up. We work with the FFA. You talked about sustainability and farming. Our programs at our school are trying to teach them. I work with them, but it's few and far between, especially with technology. The children are more interested in that than the farms. So to answer your questions, I'll still have the deer in my backyard, the bobcats that we have, and the possums. But for how long, I don't know. As long as my neighbors will farm it. Would be my answer to you. With the taxes going up, I don't know. And that's very sad, because there's no such thing as farming, or what we used to do when Mr. Welch's grandfather used to run the cotton gins in McDonough. So it definitely is a hard job to have. Do y'all have any questions for me?
Thank you.
And yes, I plan to finish. I have 4 more years, and I plan to be here. So if my property sells, I don't plan to leave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for staff or the applicant? All right, thank you, Mr. Welch.
Thank you.
All right, at this point, we can call the case.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
If it is up to the board that you all would like to approve the conditional use, I do want to propose the option that you all can make a recommendation that the conditional use approval may be made contingent upon the rezoning approval.
Correct.
Because I do have conditions placed for both properties, both cases, as well as the conditional use and the rezoning. So should the rezoning and the conditional use get approved, it'll just be one set of conditions.
Okay, so do you understand that? Okay, great. All right, thank you. Go ahead and call the case.
I'll call the first case and its associated cases. CU 2409, Pulte Group Incorporated of Atlanta, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located south of Llewellyn Road in land lots 208 of the 2nd District and 243 and 244 of the 3rd District. The property consists of 208.7 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a conservation subdivision. District 1, presented by Taylor Solomon, Planner 3.
All right, so the case has been called. Do we have a motion?
I will move to approve the conditional use with the just the condition that it is based on approving that it would go away if RZ 2426 was not approved by the commissioners.
Okay, that is the motion, and do I have a second? All right, moved and seconded. Clarification, we have discussion. The conditions that were presented by the applicant, are those part of this, or is that's for negotiation?
Well, those would go away for the conditional use, but they would apply into, when we get to the next part, to the rezoning.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. Okay, all those in favor of the conditional use? All right, motion carries. Now on to the second case, the rezoning.
RZ 2426, Pulte Group Incorporated of Atlanta, Georgia requests the rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to R2 Single Family Residence for property located south of Luella Road and land lots 208 of the 2nd District and 243 and 244 of the 3rd District. The property consists of 208.7 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single-family residential subdivision, District 1, presented by Taylor Solomon, Planner 3.
So there's no further discussion on this. We're just going to take a motion? Okay, so motion.
So I will move to approve with conditions, and we can go with the applicant's condition changes because they're more clerical from what I could see. And also I'm sure they will be readjusted before the commissioner meeting. So we can go with those conditions. So that's the motion.
Second? We have a second. Any discussion or clarification? Yes.
We did include staff conditions, correct?
Yes, with staff condition, yes. Okay. All right. So no further discussion? We have a motion and a second? All those in favor? All right, the motion carries for rezoning. All right. Thank you very much. That's all the cases we have for today. Our next meeting will be May 8th. Yes, our next zoning board meeting will be May 8th, and thank you all for coming. Have a great and safe evening going home. I motion for a meeting to adjourn. So moved, and our meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.